Hello,
and to be closer?
Yeah. So can we?
Yeah.
We start now. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for being here. So it's a chat about the ongoing study, actually. So it's nothing published here, what I'm talking about. And so it's a very quick introduction about myself, and you know already me, everybody knows here in this room. So yeah, I did my computer science degree and PhD in Reggio Calabria in Italy, and then postdoc in UCL for 6 years, now permanent here in Middlesex, as a kind of, maybe you can mute the...
Yeah, okay.
Good. As a kind of research interest I have is between web science and urban computing. So I'm interested in understanding how people use technology and using quantitative data to understand how people use technology. And a lot of study I've done is to understand also to model cities, to model how people behave in cities. So to develop special, temporal spatial models in cities. And yeah, talking about cities, one of the big general questions that I have about my research is what's the impact of new technologies in cities and how to regulate them. And to use data, to quantitative analysis on data, to try to answer these kind of questions. Okay, so if we think about technologies in cities, what can come in our mind? Maybe besides smartphones, but I think services like this. TaskRabbit, Couchsurfing, Airbnb, BlaBlaCar, so all kind of services that 1 decade ago, they may not exist in cities, and now, from one day to the other, they are active in cities. They have changed the way we use facilities, we communicate, and how we interact with strangers also in cities. Okay. So take the case of Airbnb. It is a platform that I've analyzed a lot in the past because we have data, we have plenty of data, and also it's a kind of a controversial platform. We know that in many places in the world, people try to complain about Airbnb, saying that it's a kind of platform that is just not regulated, that is just offering alternative services as hotels, but is not regulated. Other people claim that it's great because it's lowering the prices and also leave people to experience a holiday like a local. Okay, so there are some places that are regulated in some way. You know that in London is regulated in a way that nobody can rent more than 30 days per year in Airbnb. Other places they ban altogether Airbnb, so Airbnb cannot operate them. Other places completely unregulated. So it's an ongoing topic. It's a very also kind of a controversial. Everybody has a different ideas. So I try to answer these questions in the past to understand whether Airbnb is good to foster the local economy and to generate a sustainable service tourism using the data. So to say what we have tons of data in this platform. What the data is telling us? Can we have a kind of regulation or decision making based on facts and not about ideology we have? Okay, so these are one of the first studies I've done in Airbnb in 2016 when I started analyzing the platform, comparing Airbnb with the classic hotels. So we have on the left the distribution Airbnb in London, so this study was done just in London, and compared to what we have in London, distribution hotels. We see that the distribution is quite different. Hotels is more widespread, is more or less around everywhere in the city. There is a big black part here that is Heathrow Airport, the city center. Airbnb is instead a kind of more concentric. It's a lot of the center and it's going less and less around the city. Okay, so this is just visually, but what we did was to use Airbnb data for houses and rooms, and using also other data. As an example, census data, Foursquare data, and ordnance survey. Census data to understand the socio-economic characteristics or areas as an example, how many young people live, what's the income of each area, what's the employment, what's the ethical mix, the education of each area. So this is about the census data. Foursquare, to understand where people check in, so where people go, and to understand what are the touristic areas. Ordinance Survey is a map very created in the UK to understand where there are hotels or point of interest. So which kind of point of interest are where there are Airbnb. Okay, so going to the result of this study and cross-relating the two sources of data, we have that some factors are quite important in explaining the concentration of Airbnb. Like centrality, we can see from the map, central places have more Airbnb, but also something attractions, where people go in a Foursquare, presence of young people, low income, so people having less income, less well-off than other places where there are not Airbnb, and people usually having Airbnb have less owned, more rented. So they rent houses more often than places where there is no Airbnb. So this is a kind of footprint where Airbnb is present in London. And then the nice thing that we can do this over time to see how this is evolving over time. And it's also nice findings. We can see that some factors are going to be more and more important, like the presence of young people, the private areas, and the place where people rent houses are more and more important. And in the last years, centrality is less and less important. So it's a kind of phenomenon that was born in the city center, and it's spreading out, and now it's spreading out, the centrality is less important than other factors. And this is a kind of offer where there are the listings of Airbnb, so where people put listings. But if we see where people are going from reviews to understand where actually these listings are used, we see a little bit of a different picture. We see that some factors are not important. The importance is centrality, attractions, where there are young people and usually where people usually rent instead of owning houses, and this is not changing over time. So we have something that is evolving over time, but for the touristic point of view, this is not much evolving over time. Okay, so this study was the first study to understand the distribution of Airbnb and to cross-relating Airbnb data with other sources of data, and this was done in London. And one of the main questions is, are these results statistically strong and valid also in other cities? So the second round of studies was to replicate the similar studies in the US, where we have also a very rich census data to understand the extent to which the results are strong or robust. And yeah, we find a quite strong overlap on presence on Airbnb. You can, yeah, we can go on this paper at the end of the talk, because the nice results is that we can train a model on one city and predict the Airbnb on a different city. And it is quite strong result. It means that the pattern is quite the same and are more or less the same factors, besides these two factors that in London were absent, but all the other factors are in common. So the two factors in the States are quite strong, are Bohemian and Talent Index, telling how many people work in creative arts. Okay, and it's also a nice result, this, because there are several books from the 70s from Richard Florida. I don't know if you ever read any book from this guy, that was an urbanist. He was supposing that the new trend in a city, anything new, arises from the Bohemian and talented areas where there are artists, where there are people working in creative art. And yeah, this result is backed up also in the States about the presence of Airbnb. Okay, so far, just going back to London. So far, what do we know? we know where Airbnb are from reviews. And the last study, that I'm still ongoing study that I'm doing, is okay, but what we can learn from reviews? So we know from reviews the location where people have been to, but so far we have not analyzed what people say on reviews. And yeah, from reviews we know that it's a quite rich information. People share about the facility they've used, the area, they describe the area, so if it's safe, it's unsafe, but also they describe about the social interaction they had with other guests. And I think this is quite nice to understand, because usually there are strangers meeting, so it's quite nice to understand the social side of Airbnb, so how important it is for people to share something with a stranger, and also to understand what exactly people care in this platform. Because if from reviews, suppose that the people care just about the facility, we can think that in the end of the day, it's not much different from classic hotels, because people care about the same thing, about a room, about accommodation, about the services the accommodation provides. That I'm sure people care about that, but maybe people care something about more. Maybe they care about the social interaction about the guest. So the purpose here is to try to understand from this text the topics, and to understand how these topics they change over time and over space. Okay. Okay, so the study is, I collected 4 million reviews in 6 different cities. I've chosen 2 cities from UK, London and Manchester, 2 cities in the States, New York, San Francisco, 2 cities in Australia, Melbourne and Sydney. So why this? Just to consider different continents. And yeah, so far all cities are English-speaking countries. So in a way that we are not biased by the language. There are many tools that translate the language, but I didn't want that the tool interfere with the result. And it's quite tricky to control how the tool interferes with the result. So for this, most of the reviews, more than 90% of reviews are in English. We don't need any kind of translation.
So do you just ignore if they're in
the small amount that were not in English, yeah, were ignored, but they were less than 10%. Yeah. I tried also to translate them, and the tool seems to work well, but yeah, I didn't want to be influenced by the tool. Yeah, so the data starts from 2010, yeah, until today. Okay, so how to model topics? So this is a kind of big open question, and also in machine learning. And there are a lot of tools that are automatic tools. So we can use tools that they do topic detection from text. The problem of reviews that are short reviews. And having short reviews, this doesn't help. So usually these topic detection models, they work in a way that is similar to clustering. And for each review, the result will be the representative words for that cluster. The problem that we started in this way with the normal tools doing automatic topic detection. The problem is that the nuances are so small in a review that the tool doesn't capture them. So we want to go a little bit further than what does an automatic tool. So this is not the automatic tool. Just we put aside and say, okay, what we can use something more, let's say, precise. Dictionaries. So a lot of text may work on dictionaries. This is called Linguistic dictionary. I don't know if you know it. Is a dictionary that was built. So it's for linguistic inquiry and word count. So this dictionary was built by psychologists in the last decade to analyze text. And they divide each word in some categories. I, then, she, personal pronouns, negation, quantity, we have also the where. We may have social processing about humans, family, friends. We may have psychological processes about positive emotions, negative emotions, anxiety, sadness, So it's a very rich dictionary, and there are more than 60 categories in this dictionary. So just is very detailed. And so yeah, this was the first tool. Use this dictionary, and from these 60 categories, finding the categories that may fit in our purpose to try to understand the text on Airbnb. And yeah, we were just looking one by one all the categories, and we found 4 that were useful, like home, space, she, and humans. As an example, home contains something like kitchen, bed, rooms. So it may be that people using these kind of words, they express something about a property. Space, they express something about where the property is located. So there are area, away, these kind of things. Or she, he, and humans, maybe we are talking about social interaction, talking about people. So this was the starting point. Yeah, here are some examples. The room was bright and clean. Room fits with home. So the first sentence may relate to a property. The area was full of restaurants. Area fits with space, may relate with the location. And she's a lovely person, or enjoy chatting with her, may relate with social interaction. So this is the original idea. Okay, so let's say we thought, okay, let's start using this dictionary and plot over time how people use them, each category. And yeah, there is an interesting trend. Home, space, they are slightly increasing. Third person, humans, they are decreasing. So this means is a first hint that the social side of Airbnb is decreasing over time. Okay? And it is quite net. Is more than half the third person is lost in the last year. And this has been normalized. So normalization is already, so we normalize for how many words have been used. So it means in the percentage, less words about people have been used in the last years. Okay, put things in perspective, and having 100%, so this is the scale. The social side is this part, on the bottom part, and is decreasing over time. So it's not the predominant part, and is also decreasing over time. Okay. This was the starting point to say, oh, okay, something is changing. In Airbnb, something changing. But after we thought, is the UX the right tool? So actually, we use just 4 categories that are general purpose, defined, okay, by many scientists, but are not for Airbnb, are just for any kind of analysis or any kind of text. And we thought, can we build a dictionary for Airbnb? Can we build a dictionary that is valid only for this platform? And can we analyze this platform in a more aware about what is going on here? So yeah, we started from something that is called thematic analysis, and I think you know already. So it's about taking some reviews, just 100 reviews, random, and with somebody, 3 people, building a coding scheme. That's it, writing it down in post-its, the topics, then finding the synonyms, merging them, and finding a common coding scheme. And this was the first part. As an example, the room was bright and clean. We agreed to label this as a property. Or the area was full of nice restaurants. We agreed to label this as location. She left the room in perfect conditions. We agreed to label this as a professional conduct. Okay? Or she's a lovely and enjoyable person, something about personality. Or I enjoy chatting with her about social interaction. So this is a coding scheme that three different people, just independently labeling reviews and then merging everything together, we decide to keep. Okay? So we had initially 100 reviews labeled, manually labeled by us with this kind of scheme. Then we went to the ask workers, you know, platforms like Amazon Mechanical Turk or Cloudflowers are platforms where you pay for a tiny work that people do, and they do some labeling stuff. So you may say, okay, give you something labeled, label this. What we ask is to label according our scheme. So say, we provide a scheme, this is the scheme, you need to put labels on this scheme. So we went other 100 reviews, different reviews, but another 100 reviews. And we asked people to label them according to this scheme. And so for each review, were 4 different workers doing this. We paid, I think, 10 cents per label. And what happened is, what we can do after is to measure the consistency people label reviews to understand whether this code scheme is strong enough. As an example, we found that people consistently use the label property, location, business conduct, but the last two, personality and social interaction, was a little bit blurred. So some people labeled something as personality, somebody else as a social interaction, and this was a little bit blurred. So it was not so clear with the workers what is what. For this reason, we merged them in only one category, and we went again another round. And now the round was consistent. Nobody had confusion when we paid workers. So we kept this, the final code scheme. So this was the code scheme that we used. So now that we have a final code scheme, we went to ask people to label a large quantity of reviews. Not anymore 100, but 1,500. So to have some reviews that are labeled, and we can use these labels in a machine learning algorithms later on. Okay, so this was the result. So after 1,500 reviews, most of them were about property, some of them about location, less about business conduct, and even less about social interaction. But they were consistent at least, so we're sure enough that the labeling was done properly. And okay, so now what we have, 1,500 reviews labeled by them, manually labeled, and we need to build a dictionary for this. So a dictionary that is alternative to LUIC. How to do that? So consider this. We can use label property. So all the reviews that are being labeled as property. And we can use the label not property. All the reviews that have been not labeled as property. What we did is to play with the term frequency. So we used the bag of words model. So we have unigrams, we can use n-grams, but we can use different words. And consider the gain. So when the frequency of some label divided by the frequency of not the label is higher than a certain threshold. So as thresholds, we use this. So the gain bigger than 3. We played a little bit, but yeah, this is the way we want that here words are more representative than there. So also the term frequency of the left label is there's some support, so it's being used quite enough. It's not so unpopular, and the word that here, lastly, that the word is not super popular. So we are not discovering a word that they use everywhere. So these are the thresholds that we have used. The nice thing is just using this threshold, we have that the words that should be part of the dictionary, automatically they come out. Okay, so words from property are room, bright, clean, apartment, cozy, studio, house, and all these kind of words are just done, discovered, just using automatic tools, just having the reviews labeled. Okay, so here it was the first, let's say, the first iteration. So after this iteration, we had 4 properties, and for each property, we had words associated with that property following the procedure before. How can we still improve this? We thought to use some machine learning now, and we thought to use word-to-vec. It's a word embedding, I don't know, you for sure you know. So it's a word-to-vec is a model that represents word as a vectors in a 9-dimensional setting. So usually words are represented in 50 or 100 dimensions, and there are very nice properties about this model. So usually it's trained in a large corpus of text, and we had this because we had in total 4 million reviews. So we can use for this model all 4 million reviews, not only the 1,500. And after we train this, the nice property of this model that is going to vectors is possible to have a very nice operation in words. As an example, the king is equal to the queen plus woman minus man. And Paris, the same Paris may go to France, and the vector is parallel to London and goes to England. So is the property, that there is plenty of studies, the property from this model are so strong that it's possible to use the vectors in a very consistent way to sum them, subtract them, and to find similarity between them. Okay, so we trained all the 4 million reviews using this model. And after doing that, we thought, okay, so if we consider the original seeds from the 1,500 reviews, what do we have? We have a dictionary containing the reviews, the words that are more representative for this level. But maybe we have been unlucky, because in our 1,500, maybe apartment is being used, but cottage could be not be used, because we were just unlucky that it was not present in our small portion of reviews. But now, if from word-to-vect we know that the two vectors are very, very similar to each other, we can include this as well. So we may build a kind of graph with there is a connection between two words when the similarity according to word-to-vect is very high, and enrich the dictionary with the words contained in word-to-vec. So this is what we have done. And this phase is to enrich the dictionary with other words. Not only this, we can do a little bit more. If we think we have 4 different teams, okay? So we discover 4 teams. What if we do clustering? As an example, we group words that are very, very similar to each other. So if we do clustering, we may find subteams. And this is what happened, that the 4 teams, the 4 original teams, they become 14 subteams. Okay, I show them here. So for property, as an example, it's possible doing just simple clustering on word-to-vec. It's possible to find type, interior, facilities, subteams. We put this name, the names are put by us, but all the words that you find on the right and be discovered by the clustering algorithm. Location was not possible to find any subclusters, although it's very rich in words. But professional conduct, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different subteams. And social interaction, we have people, personality. What we have lost before now is a natural sub-team on word-to-back with sharing, talking needs. So, wow, now we have a very rich dictionary, and this rich dictionary just started for mathematical analysis and then doing some machine learning on top of it. And this is what we used now to analyze Airbnb over time. Okay, to be honest, the part that I was considered the most is the last one. So for this is a dictionary that we can use in other setting to analyze other setting. But in this study, what I want to understand is the social part of Airbnb. So I was focusing on this and on the 5 sub-themes of social interaction. Okay, social versus business. If we use, for now, the 4 big themes about, let's say, property, location, professional conduct, something more business, and the last one, more social, we have this trend. We have the trend of the property, location, and professional conduct. The 3 of them are increasing over time, and the social part is again decreasing over time. So this is enforcing what we have already found with the Linguistic dictionary. And if we want to understand which part of the social is decreasing, so here is the trend. So all the social aspects are interesting decreasing, excluding maybe this social sharing, but all the parts are decreasing. So it's a trend that involves all the social aspect of Airbnb. To put things in perspective, so the purple one is the social side of Airbnb that is decreasing over time, and there we can put in different grades the sub-themes of the social part, how they are decreasing. So we see that some sub-themes are more used than others, like people, personality. Others very, very little used, but they are all decreasing. Okay, so this was just the first result. And the question is this statistically significant? So we have just plots here. Maybe we've been lucky, or is a coincidence, is still a statistical difference. So if we consider the first year and the last year, and we do the frequency distribution of the social side of the 2 parts, and we do the kind of t-test, a statistical test, to see how strong, how we are confident that the 2 distributions are different, we get a very low p-value. So meaning that what we see in the plot is supported by statistics. Okay. Now, okay, we know that the social part is decreasing. Why? So why is this happening? Could it be the result of confounding factors, what people say a lot of times? As an example, review length. People may write less and less, and since they write less and less, they may forget to focus about the social side. Or maybe different composition in cities. We analyze 6 cities all together. Maybe some cities have some trends, other cities have different trends, and then one city is eating the trend of another city, could be. Or the room type, so you know that Airbnb, you can share a room, or you can share a full apartment. Maybe this composition is changing over time, and one component is eating the other component. Or could it be a platform or update, that is, Airbnb have changed the rules from one time to another, and so people react in a different way. So we try to acknowledge and to understand whether one of these factors is responsible to what we see. Different lengths. We see something interesting. People write less and less. So people write more reviews. There are more people using Airbnb, but they write less and less. So reviews are shorter and shorter. So an explanation could be, yes, shorter reviews means that they are less social because they don't want to focus on this. However, if we group reviews, so we segment reviews by length. So here we have only the short reviews in the center, only the medium reviews, On the right, only the long reviews, and we redo this over here, the trend is the same. So, seems to be not this. So the trend is repeated for short, medium,